Hi everybody, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to another episode of Live Wire Review. Today I'm here with the 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 5. This is the ultimate model with the bigger battery and all-wheel drive. Well, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is range, because everybody always wants to know about range in an electric vehicle. Now this one has a 0.28 coefficient of drag, so it is not as efficient as the Ioniq 6 counterpart that has come out. But this one is a more useful vehicle, so this is the one people are going to be more interested in. I'm just going to throw the combined figure up here. It's 21.5 kilowatt hours per 100 combined, and I'll put the rest of the figures down below, so just keep an eye out for those. So by my math, if you take your 77.4 kilowatt hour battery that this one comes with, that should give you a range of about 360 kilometers in your combined setting. A little less on the highway, a little more on your backcountry roads. That's why it's rated as a 400 kilometer vehicle, is because you can actually get over 400 kilometers in nice weather. So just keep in mind, it's right around 360 for normal driving. And it is going to be coming out with a bigger battery pack later this year whenever that mid-cycle refresh comes out, and it's going to come with an 84 kilowatt hour battery. So that takes your 360 kilometer range and bumps it up to a 390. So just check with your dealer when you go in and find out what battery pack is in the Ioniq 5 that you are buying today. And we're going to move on to under the hood. Okay, so we're under the hood in the Hyundai Ioniq 5 right now, and I want to focus on some of the things that I notice as an EV certified technician. This one actually has two coolant loops on it. One has pink coolant, one has blue coolant. Now that doesn't matter to most people. The pink coolant has a very, very long life in this, so you don't have to change that for quite some time, let's say around 200,000 kilometers or so. But this one does have an electrically insulated blue coolant, so you just got to keep in mind some of the maintenance items you're going to be doing on this vehicle when you go to buy it. The blue coolant has to be changed at around 60,000 kilometers just because it breaks down a little bit faster. Being an electrically insulated coolant, it's a totally different type than what most vehicles use. So just keep that in mind when it comes to your maintenance costs. They did have an issue with this coolant previously, but that has been taken care of, and they have a Type 2 coolant out now. What else is under the hood here? Of course, we have our very, very tiny frunk. It's about enough space for your charging cables. It's nice to get that stuff out of the way. You can put your V2L adapter up here, and you can put your 120 volt adapter up front. And you have your battery access over here on the side. And outside of that, there's not much else to see here under the hood. This one is a dual motor platform, so you get all-wheel drive with this one. You're running a permanent magnet motor in the front and a permanent magnet motor in the rear. And that's kind of interesting to me because this one actually uses a disconnect on the front motor. So when you go up to speed and you want all-wheel drive, it matches the motor speed to the drive wheels, and it actually uses a part to move over and connect that to the front. And while we're talking about drivetrains, I'm just going to mention this does have 320 horsepower, 446 foot-pounds of torque. It'll go 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. It's pretty quick for a vehicle of this size, and it's in the better weight class when it comes to EVs. This one is about 4,662 pounds, which is less than some of the other ones on the market. I've seen EVs in this class that tip the 5,000 pound mark. So it's a good weight, it's a good setup, and I really like the dual motor setup in this vehicle. The reason it has two coolant loops, which I forgot to mention before, is because this one has an A-class heat pump. As you know, on this channel, I have started classifying heat pumps. This is one of the best heat pumps in the game. Hyundai's heat pump is the reason why I purchased a Hyundai Kona electric before I ever got a Tesla product, is because they were the first to the market with this world-class heat pump system. It'll take heat from the air using a front condenser. It'll take heat from both motors, the inverter, the charging unit, and anything else it can scavenge heat from. Of course, the battery, of course. And what's nice is it has the two coolant loops. So it has a high temperature and a low temperature. And both of these coolants meet at a multi-plate heat conductor. So they're able to draw heat from every part of the vehicle, and they're also able to channel off from two different parts. So if one side is cool and one side is warm, they only take heat from one side of it. It's one of the most efficient systems I've ever seen, which translates to you, it means more driving range in the winter. So despite the fact that it has a smaller battery than the competition, you're not going to lose as much range. So those range figures that everybody always asks me about in the winter, it's going to be much better than other brands. So let's say you had a 90 kilowatt hour battery from someone else and 77 from Hyundai, you're going to find that winter range, they're going to be about the same unless you're getting down to those minus 30 temperatures. Okay, we're here at the back end of the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and this is the major reason why you're going to pick this over a lot of other vehicles. Everybody picks a crossover because of that hatchback, because of that trunk, because of the ease of loading everything. So this one has a fairly expansive trunk. It has 770 liters of space with the seats folded up. And with the seats down, well, then you're looking at 1,680 liters of storage space. Look at all the room you have for those IKEA flat pack boxes, or if you have to split, you have that 60-40 split folding seat in the rear, so you can fit long items with a couple of passengers still in the back. I'm here in the back seat of the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I'm 6'1" tall, and we're just checking to see how much headroom we have. Now, we're in the ultimate model with the glass roof, so keep in mind the preferred model might actually have a little bit more headroom. Now, I'm sitting all the way back with the seat all the way reclined, and my hair is just touching the headliner. So if you're over 6'1", this might be a little bit tight, but for most passengers, this should be more than comfortable. And what's nice is this one actually has reclining seats, so you can set your position. A couple other nice features back here. They have USB ports in the middle of the console. There are heated rear seats back here. And a nice addition for this year, they actually have sunshades in the Ultimate model, which is a nice touch because that was a feature that I could only find in the Hyundai Santa Fe before. It's really nice to see it here in the Ioniq 5. It's a feature that I really wanted in my own vehicle. Now, a nice engineering touch here. For the rear heat, it is just a couple of vents that are in the pillars, which means that it was cheap engineering. It works really well, and it's actually good for the consumer too, because it means that there are no condensers or anything or heater cores running to the back of the vehicle. It's just a pair of ducts placed really well to get heat to the rear of the vehicle. So I like that. It's a nice touch. Now, I have the seat set up in my driving position. My legs feel like they're in a comfortable spot, and there's still about 2 inches of space for my knees. So it's a really nice place back here. One of the other reasons I like this vehicle so much is it has a feature called Vehicle to Load, or V2L. Now that's where you get an adapter from your dealer and you're able to plug household appliances in here. Now this Vehicle to Load feature actually puts out 1.7 kilowatts worth of power, or 1,700 watts. I've read a lot of reports online through Facebook and people who have been through a power outage, and this feature has been a godsend. It is so handy. People have been able to run their microwaves, their coffee makers, cell phones, internet, all of those very important things you need in a power outage. Now, it doesn't do 240 volts out, but it's super handy. You can use it in the campground, and of course you can help your neighbors and everything out when there's a power outage. It's one of my favorite features about this car. Now, the Hyundai Kona Electric was supposed to come with that, but they actually removed that at the last minute right before the 24 model came out. But you can still get that in the Kia Niro Premium one, or the Ultimate package of the Kia Niro. So it's very limited in those cars, but I know in the Ioniq 6 and the Ioniq 5, you do get this Vehicle to Load feature. So you do have to get your adapter from the dealer, or you have the option of getting this adapter from A2Z. Now that's a company here in Canada, and it was actually shipped to my door for $107. So that's a nice option for you there. Okay, we're in the 2024 Hyundai Ioniq 5 and we're about to go for a drive right now. Now, I have actually driven this one in the winter as well as in the summer. One thing I wanted to note about the drivetrain on this vehicle. So the battery's in the middle of this. You have a motor at the front and the rear, but it's a totally different setup than what you would find in a Tesla. This one actually has the motor in the rear is hanging over the back axle. So you actually have that weight just a little bit rearward of the rear axle. So that gives you a little bit of a heavy rear end. So if you think about how like a Porsche 911 was set up, how is the engine over the back end, you get a little bit of that in this vehicle. Now, of course, most of the weight is centered around the middle, but you do have some hanging around the back. Now, driving in the winter, you would expect that it would be a little bit better in the snow than it is with the rear-wheel drive version, but I did still find it slipping a bit when it came to the really deep snow. So keep that in mind. I would highly recommend the all-wheel drive model of this vehicle because it works really well. I've driven the all-wheel drive model in the winter and it doesn't falter whatsoever. It just grips and it goes. And despite having a disconnect in the front motor, the programming is so good you don't even notice the all-wheel drive kicking in. Now, I did have one customer say they could feel it once in a while, but that was only in very, very deep snow. So that system works quite well. I do find it interesting that they use a permanent magnet motor up front. Now, they probably get more efficient regen from it, and they might get a little bit of efficiency gains because they have that disconnect device. Personally, I'd like to see a little bit more of an induction motor up front instead of a permanent magnet motor. Then you wouldn't need that disconnect device, but this is how they've designed it and it works really well. So there is no issue with having a permanent magnet motor up front. I just found it interesting. So I'm in the Ultimate model today, which means it comes everything from a Bose audio system. It's got heads-up display, which is actually right in the middle of the windshield. There is no plastic sheet here. It's prominently displayed right where you're looking at the road, so you never have to look far for all of the information you need. Like right now, it is showing a vehicle in my blind spot, it's showing me my speed, and it's showing me the current speed limit using GPS data. So other features that this one has is a heated steering wheel, heated seats, cooled seats in the Ultimate model, this beautiful panoramic glass roof, but this is not an opening glass roof. This is a fixed glass roof, but there is a power sunshade that closes on this fixed glass roof. Of course, you get power mirrors, folding mirrors. It has power presenting door handles, and that can be adjusted to your tastes. You don't have to have them present the door handles. You can set it up in such a way that those door handles are always flush with the vehicle. Because I've noticed the way they're set up now, you can always tell when the vehicle's unlocked because the door handles are sticking out. Another notable feature in here is that this one actually comes with memory seats, something that the Kona Electric did not come with back in the day. So I like seeing that feature in here. I'm going to move on to the climate control. As I mentioned before, this one has an excellent heat pump system. What I would highly recommend you do with any of the Hyundai products is put them in the automatic mode. Now, I know it's counterproductive. A lot of people think you should maybe set the temperature higher and then lower it down. In Hyundai vehicles, leave it in auto. It works really well. One of the things that they do with this system is it has a humidity sensor up at the top of the windshield. And with that humidity sensor, it can always tell if the windshield needs to be cleared. And it works really well. So trust it. And the other reason you're going to want to trust it is if you go over to the energy screen on here, you'll find that if you set the temperature higher on your own, it's going to use that PTC heater, because this one has a heat pump as well as a PTC heater. So if you need heat right away, it's able to provide it for you. But that PTC heater is 5,500 watts in most cases, and you don't want to be using that kind of power in the winter. You want to be relying on that heat pump system. So when you leave it in auto, set it around 22 degrees or less, you're going to be very comfortable in here, and it's going to adjust everything for you. From using this in the winter, I have found that it only draws anywhere from down to 800 watts, and at the high end about 3,300, but that's only when it's first started up. In really cold weather, you're going to be sitting around 1,800 watts. So that heat pump system works really well. Trust it in the automatic setting. So one of the quirky features here is there is no dedicated buttons for the heated and cooled seats. You have to press the warmer button on your climate control to bring up that screen. So it means you don't have to fumble through the screens in order to find that feature. Just hit the warmer button and it'll bring up your heated steering wheel, heated seats, and cooled seats. So we are in the top model today, and I mentioned some of the features that come with the Ultimate package. However, for most people, what I would recommend is to get the all-wheel drive preferred package with the long-range battery. Especially here in North America, you're going to need the bigger battery to go those longer distances. Now, this vehicle I really like because it is road trip friendly. I know it has a slightly smaller battery than the Mach, the Ariya, and maybe a couple others on the market, but it's lighter and it charges faster. And honestly, as long as the range of this vehicle fits your daily needs, this is the better vehicle to take on a road trip. Because as long as you stick with your 150 kilowatt plus chargers on your road trip, the charge time on this is anywhere from 18 minutes to 25 minutes per stop, which on my road trips, that is the sweet spot. If you can do your charging stops in 20 to 25 minutes, most of the time you can't even get your family through the bathroom before the car is done charging. Those vehicles out there that do the 40 to 45 minute charge times, it's a little long, and you're going to notice that on your road trip. So this is the perfect all-around vehicle. Hyundai's build quality is just out of this world. Hyundai owns their own steel company. They make their own alloys of high-strength steel. So it's no wonder that this is one of the safest vehicles on the road as well. They have high-strength steel in some of the most critical points of this vehicle, and the crash tests just speak for themselves. Another notable feature in here is this is one of the quietest vehicles I've ever driven. There is actually laminated glass, both front and rear, so dual pane glass front and rear. It is so quiet in here, you can whisper to your family. It's one of the nicest vehicles to drive. Now, it is an interesting driving dynamic from where I'm sitting. You step a little lower into this car than you would most crossover vehicles. It has slightly lower profile. If you're looking for that high up SUV feel, I would recommend the Nissan Ariya. It has more of a feel of a RAV4, but this one is lower and it's wider. And you really do feel how it's wider. It also comes with a 3,000 millimeter wheelbase. The wheelbase on this is actually longer than on the Hyundai Palisade. And you'll notice that. It gives you a lot of control. You really feel that planted footprint. And I've never been a fan of Hyundai's suspension in the way it feels on the road, but this one soaks up the cracks fairly well. I'm going over cracks right now, and they're definitely less noticeable than they are in Teslas and other vehicles that I've driven. So it's quite a nice place to be. The wheels, the tires, the suspension soaks up the bumps. The length of the vehicle is really nice for control. And yeah, I just really like it. It's a really nice setup in here. Another thing you're gonna notice when you drive an Ioniq 5 is just how wide this vehicle feels on the inside. You are very far away from your passenger, and if you get the Ultimate model, you actually have a sliding armrest here, and it's a completely flat floor, front and back. So it's just a really expansive space for the passengers, and you're gonna notice that compared to other vehicles. When Matt and I were driving the Nissan Ariya, we noticed that we're a lot closer. Our elbows were touching when we were on the armrest, but in here there is so much room, and the armrests are still placed really nicely. It's kind of like being on a big comfy couch, and for that reason it'll make a great commuter to take you to and from work. And it's going to be excellent on road trips. Like I said, that charge time is out of this world. It's perfect. It's the perfect amount of time for a road trip. Some of the nice things I like about legacy automakers is the fact that they still have buttons. You can still get to the features you need. And one of the things I really like is the auto dimming mirrors that come in legacy automakers. They figured these things out like 20 years ago. So they just work. When I drive this at night, I never notice the headlights behind me. And this one comes with LED headlights in the front with automatic high beams, and the programming from Hyundai on those automatic high beams is just perfect. I've never noticed that it's flashing other drivers, and it picks up on tail lights and other lights really quickly. Another notable feature in here is this one comes with adaptive cruise control with the lane keeping assist and all those host of features. Hyundai is one of my favorite companies when it comes to these systems. They ignore vehicles that are turning left in front of you, which I really enjoy because it means it's not slamming on the brakes all the time, thinking that you're going to hit a car that's turning left. It's programmed to ignore that. It also doesn't ping pong like crazy between the lanes. It keeps it fairly centered, and you don't really notice the inputs on the steering wheel, which means that it feels more natural. If you're used to other Hyundai products, and I actually find this kind of funny between the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6, the Ioniq 5 has the cruise control buttons on the right side of the steering wheel, whereas the Ioniq 6 actually has it on the left side of the steering wheel. So if you're a family that always buys the same brand, keep in mind that if you're swapping between vehicles, this might be a little bit confusing. So that's all I'm going to talk about for now. I'm just about back at the dealership, so stay tuned. I'm just going to wrap up my thoughts on the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Well, we're coming to the end of this video, and I just have to wrap up my thoughts on the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Honestly, this is one of the best EVs on the market, and that's for quite a few reasons. You have that 400-kilometer range, which for me is the perfect amount of range for an electric vehicle. It'd be nice if it had more, but under 400 kilometers, you're cutting it a little bit close, especially when it comes to winter range. So this one has all-wheel drive. It's the Ultimate package. You don't quite need the Ultimate package. To be honest, the one that I would recommend would be the preferred all-wheel drive. It has everything you need, but you sacrifice a little bit in that audio system. So that might be the only thing that I would really recommend stepping up to the Ultimate model for, although you do also get those memory seats, the glass roof, you get the reclining seat. So there are a few things you get with the Ultimate package. I'm just saying for most people, the preferred package with the all-wheel drive is probably what you're gonna need. If you get the rear-wheel drive, you're gonna suffer a little bit in the winter, but it's still a good option for you. Another reason I like this vehicle is because it has that vehicle to load feature, which, as you know, you can use in a power outage or at the campground. So it's just got great features. And when it comes to road trips in this car, that 18 to 25 minute charge time is just right in that sweet spot. It's so much faster than some of the other vehicles on the market, which are hovering around 43 minutes when you're on a road trip. And so for that reason, I'd highly recommend the Hyundai Ioniq 5 in your search. If the Ioniq 6 fits your needs a little bit better. It doesn't have the same storage space as the Ioniq 5, but it goes about 70 to 80 kilometers further on a charge. So if it's all out range you need, the Ioniq 6 is what you're going to want to look at, but the Ioniq 5 wins in my books because it has that crossover style. You can fit everything in the back, you can fold down the seats, it's got that hatchback practicality, whereas the Ioniq 6 is a little bit longer. It gives you the legroom, but it doesn't give you the headroom in the back, and you do get the headroom in the Ioniq 5. So if you found this video helpful, maybe think about liking the video and subscribing to the channel and paying attention to what we're doing next. Thanks for watching.